today we're diving into a case that's been everywhere, really. The sentencing of Wade Stephen Wilson, the TikTok famous killer.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And we really want to get into, the why behind it all, what the judge was thinking and how this death penalty stuff actually works.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the law, not just the headlines, right? Mm-hmm. So just a quick recap. Wilson, he was convicted of a double homicide back in 2019. Victims were Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz.
Right.
And it wasn't just that. He was also hit with grand theft auto, battery, and burglary charges, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and get this. This was all while he was already on probation for other felonies.
It's kind of like those extra details, the stuff you don't always hear in the news. They really give you the full picture of what the court was dealing with. Like the sentencing order, it uses some strong language, really strong, describing the murders of Melton and Ruiz. Heinous, atrocious, cruel. That's heavy stuff.
And it makes you think about, the level of violence, right?
Yeah.
Which matters hugely in these types of cases.
Cool.
And then this is just chilling. After he murdered Melton, Wilson, he steals her car. And this is from his own confession. He used it to, actively look for his next victim, Diane Ruiz. It's premeditated.
Yeah, and that premeditation, it really stands out.
Absolutely.
It's in those specifics that we bump into these two big legal ideas. Aggravating and mitigating factors, they're kind of like weights on a scale.
Okay, I like that analogy, the scale. I think it helps make it clear.
Yeah, for sure. So picture a scale, right? Aggravating factors, those are like weights that the prosecution, they pile onto one side to make the crime seem even more serious, which could mean, a tougher sentence.
Right.
Now, the other side, you have mitigating factors, and those are the weights the defense uses, trying to, lighten things up, suggest a lighter sentence.
So, in Wilson's case, the prosecution, they'd argue that premeditation in Ruiz's murder, that's a big weight on their side, right? Mm.
Exactly. And then you could see the defense, maybe they bring up Wilson's drug use or maybe some mental health stuff, trying to, add something to their side.
It's like they're each making their case piece by piece, adding these weights.
Yeah, precisely. And the judge, they have to look at this whole scale, weigh all those factors, and then decide, what's a just outcome here? And to really get that, we got to go to the judge's words. Luckily, we've got those for this case. And this judge, very thorough in their explanation.
Yeah, and there's this one quote really stuck with me. The court does not engage in a mere counting procedure. What did the judge mean there?
That's huge. Basically, it's not just about, tallying up the aggravating and mitigating things, right? It's about understanding them, how much weight each one carries, how they connect to each other. It's the bigger picture.
It's about context, not just checking boxes.
Exactly. And it's worth mentioning here, Florida, it's one of the few states that still, uses the death penalty. So that adds another layer to everything the judge is weighing here.
It's important for us listening, Ryan, because this isn't just some law school case study. This is real, with huge consequences. It really makes you think about the weight on their shoulders. The judge and the jury. And speaking of the jury, their recommendation, it wasn't unanimous in this case, was it?
Right, it wasn't. When it came to Christine Melton's murder, the jury voted 9-3 for the death penalty. But for Diane Ruiz, it was 10-2.
Wow, that split, it really gets you thinking, You think juries are always on the same page. But this shows how tough these decisions can be. Why do you think those votes differed?
It's hard to say for sure, being in that jury room and all, but it shows that people, even with the same evidence in front of them, they can see it so differently. Maybe some were more focused on Ruiz's murder, the premeditation, or maybe they were really affected by what Melton's family said, the impact statements.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility, right? No easy answers. But in the end, it's the judge's call. What did they decide?
The judge, after looking at everything, all the arguments, all the evidence, they said the aggravating factors greatly outweigh the mitigating circumstances. So they heard the defense, trying to explain Wilson's past, but in the end, it wasn't enough.
It's like those weights on the scale, right?
Yeah.
The judge felt the prosecution's side, the aggravating factors were just too heavy. And that led to the death penalty for both murders.
That's right, for both. But, and this is important for everyone listening, it doesn't end there. Florida has this automatic appeals process for death penalty cases. So this story, it's not over.
So even though the judge made their decision, there's still years of legal stuff ahead.
Absolutely. Wilson's case, it'll go through tons of appeals, reviews, lawyers on both sides. They'll be combing through everything, every detail, every ruling. And you know what? That's a good thing. especially for a case as big as this one.
It's about making sure everything was done right, that justice is served. Makes you think, though, throughout this whole thing, this whole deep dive, something's been bugging me. The judge, they acknowledged Wilson had a rough past, a lot of hardship, but in the end, it didn't excuse his actions. So where do we draw that line? When does someone's past stop being an excuse and they have to face the music?
Man, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like this age-old debate, nature versus nurture, personal responsibility, all of it. And there's no easy answer, especially with a case like this. You've got social media, you've got violence, it all gets tangled up.
And that takes us to, I don't know, this whole TikTok famous killer thing. It's just strange, right? Like, you can't talk about Wilson without talking about social media. Did it matter? Did it play a role in all this? It's hard to say.
It's really wild when you think about it. I mean, anyone can be famous now, right? Just a click away. And the lines get blurry, who you are online, who you are for real. Did that fame, that wanting attention, did it push Wilson in some way? Did it mess with his head? And what about how we see the case? Does that online stuff change how people see it, even a little?
It makes you think, right? These horrible crimes, but then there's this whole other thing going on, likes and followers and all that. Makes you wonder, is this the new normal for these cases? Something courts will have to deal with more and more.
It's definitely something to think about. As we get deeper into this whole digital thing, this online world, it's going to bump into the legal world more and more. It's inevitable, really, and that's where it gets tricky. How do you even measure online fame in a courtroom? Is it like another factor on that scale, aggravating or mitigating? I don't know.
Totally uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Legally, ethically, all of it.
Yeah.
And maybe there aren't clear answers, and maybe that's all right. Sometimes it's about recognizing how complicated it is, being okay with the not knowing, and just keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. These cases, even though they're tough, they make us talk about the big stuff, the death penalty, mental health, how social media plays into all this. What does justice even mean in a digital world? It's a lot.
Exactly. It's about thinking for yourself, not just following hashtags, right?
Yeah.
Getting real information, talking to each other. That's how we figure things out.
Totally agree.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on Wade Stephen Wilson, it's not just his story, It's bigger than that. It's about all of us, really. If this case got to you at all, made you think, made you uncomfortable, that's good. Sit with that. Learn more. Talk about it. That's how things change, right? That's how we grow. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions and keep diving deep.